So I picked up a book recently that got me thinking about what it was like to be a reader of science fiction in the first half of the 1960s. I'm not talking about what we think was popular in the 1960s or what has survived. I'm talking about what it was like to be like a boots on the ground science fiction reader in the early 1960s. And I think this book is important because it puts you in the shoes of someone reading what was popular at the time. This is the American Science Fiction 4 Classic Novels, 1960 to 1966. It's part one of like a 2-part set. I picked this up used, as you can tell. The second half is a lot of new wave science fiction because that's what was happening in the late 60s. But this first half, this thing is something special. And it's not because it has very popular books in it. It's because it has books that feel almost forgotten now, especially by modern science fiction readers. And I think that they should be talked about. I think that anyone interested in science fiction from the 1960s should be reading this book. And so let's talk about what is in the book. It's 4 novels, and we've got The High Crusade by Paul Anderson from 1960, Way Station by Clifford D. Simic, published in 1963. That won the Hugo Award in 63. I've made a video about that, so go check that out. Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, which was originally a short story from 1959, but it was expanded into a novel in 1966. And it won the Hugo Award for Best Short Fiction in 60 and was a joint winner of the Nebula Award in 1966 for Best Novel. The last one is And Call Me Conrad, which most people know as This Immortal by Roger Zelazny. It's important to note that it is called And Call Me Conrad in here intentionally because that was Zelazny's preferred title, and this is a corrected version of the novel. This is one of the few places you can get it. When it was serialized, it was chopped up and shortened, and then when it was published as a mass market paperback, not everything was put back in it, and you didn't get a complete version until the 1980s, I think. But this one has the most complete version. So now that I've listed off these books, I'm going to guarantee that most of you haven't read any of these, except for maybe Flowers for Algernon, because that is still taught in schools, which is very good. But let's break each one of these down and talk about why I think it's important that people read these if they want to understand science fiction from the early 1960s. Up until, the late 50s, early 60s, science fiction's big thing was being in magazines, like Astounding Science Fiction, stuff like that. But the 1950s was that time of like everyone starting to published novels. And the early 60s, you had some people still breaking in with short fiction like Zelazny, but then quickly moving on to novels because that's where the money was. Zelazny has mentioned that. A lot of people, when they think 1960s science fiction, people are thinking about things like Dune, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Man in the High Castle, Clockwork Orange, even stuff like Solaris, but I don't know many people that were reading Solaris back then because I don't know how quickly it was translated to English. But when we look at these 4 novels in this, they were all like nominated for popular science fiction awards, and other than Flowers for Algernon, no one talks about them anymore. So they're not popular now, but they were a cornerstone of science fiction in the early 60s. Or let's talk about what made them popular at the time. And of course, this is all me just yapping about why I think people thought they were popular then. We'll start with The High Crusade by Paul Anderson. Now, the thing that makes this book special is it's fun. It's ridiculous. He takes this absurd premise and runs with it. The High Crusade is about a spaceship landing in Europe during like the Middle Ages, and these guys are getting ready to go to war, like these knights and swordsmen, all that stuff, regular like castle stuff. Well, this alien ship lands. They got laser guns, yeah, but they don't know how to fight when it gets up close and personal, and so they get overpowered by these knights. This happens very early in the book. These knights take one of the aliens hostage and are like, bro, you're taking us to space so we can get to where we need to be faster. And then crazy stuff happened. Paul Anderson took this ridiculous premise and did something silly with it in science fiction. Now, I didn't mention it at the beginning because I just remembered. The thing that makes these special is the early 60s is that point in science fiction where you don't have to write about dudes in bubble helmets saving women from aliens. You can write about that, but the early 1960s science fiction was really pushing out of the boundaries that had been set on the genre by the editors and publishers in the 40s and 50s. This is the decade where science fiction starts thinking about more than just spaceships and laser guns and stuff. And The High Crusade is one of those books that really shows that you can do just about anything with science fiction and be successful and popular. Is a very popular book. It's like a historical romance style book that happens to have aliens. It's so good. The next one, Way Station by Clifford D. Simic. I love this book. It has the most chill vibes for something that is talking about the world maybe ending. It was published in 63, like I said. It won a Hugo Award, and the Hugo Award is a popularity contest. It's a popularity contest for the people that were at the Hugo Award that year, but still, it had to have been popular enough for all these tuned-in science fiction nerds to vote for it above some other very popular things. So in this, Clifford D. Simic writes this very pastoral, chill story about a Civil War veteran who is still alive after World War II. This is in like the early 50s or whatever, in rural Illinois, up in an area I have been to. And wow, does Clifford D. Simic do a great job of describing that place. The Iowa side is like the bluffs. It's up near Dubuque, but when you go to the other side, it's still very hilly, like there's valleys and stuff. Everyone thinks of places like that part of Iowa and Illinois is very flat. No, there's like mining towns up there. Very cool place to visit. Galena, Illinois is quite the tourist trap, but also a lot of fun. It's like a little slice of a German town put into rural Illinois. So he lives in that area. He lives in like a little valley that is known for agriculture. It's very remote. He's been living in that house since he got done fighting in the Civil War. How is he still alive? Well, he is the guardian of a way station that is used for interstellar travel. Essentially, there are these focal points for people to travel across the universe, and one of them happens to be in his house. And his main job is to make sure humanity doesn't know about it and to help these aliens be comfortable when they stop and are waiting for the next jump out. And the reward is time doesn't happen inside the house. So the house on the outside looks like it always has, but it's an enclosure for this stasis area where you jump from one point to another. So when he's in there, he doesn't age, which is why he is like in his late 50s when he should be very dead and just bones. He lives in a little shack connected to the side of the house, and he has notes. He's written all sorts of really interesting stuff about the aliens he's met. This book is so chill. It is all about the scenery and the relationships between the characters in the book, just this interpersonal communication. It's very cool. Does not seem like something that would be science fiction in the early 60s. And it's really just a prime example of that experimentation that everyone was pushing for. And, you know, in the later 60s, really pushed for. So I think it's great. The writing is very good and the book is very short. Ain't nothing better than a good short book. Like when you've got skyrocketing quality and very few pages, you are absolutely cooking. I love it. My little ADHD monkey brain is just hyped beyond all belief. After that, we've got Flowers for Algernon. And pretty much everyone knows about Flowers for Algernon. It is heartbreaking. I've heard that you should probably read the short story instead of the novel, but I read the novel. I absolutely love it. It is about a man with very low intelligence being given genius level intelligence, and it is from his POV. It is a framed narrative and it is journal entries, and they change as his cognition increases. And I don't want to spoil it because it is such a wonderful book, but this book is very literary and revolves around what it means to be intelligent, how intelligence is linked with happiness, and about reliving and coping with past trauma. It's beautiful. It is amazing, and I'm so glad that it is the most popular book on this list. And yet again, it's one of those things where Daniel Keyes was not writing some pulpy thing that was all action oriented and about all the generic tropes of science fiction of the like late 50s. He was pushing boundaries with this thing. Like, this is considered literary fiction by some people, and it makes sense, but it's science fiction. It won a Nebula Award. It's science fiction. The last one, And Call Me Conrad by Roger Zelazny, it tied with Dune for the Hugo Award in 1966. It's incredible. And that tie was the major catalyst for me deciding to make this video, because I'm thinking Dune is one of the most popular science fiction novels ever written. And at the time that it came out, and yes, it was huge even then, this debut novel from Roger Zelazny tied with it for a popularity award. I just couldn't believe it. And nobody's read And Call Me Conrad, or This Immortal as it's known, which is a shame because the book is good. It is very Zelazny. He listed it as one of his 5 favorite novels that he wrote. And I want to make a video about that later on, so I won't dig too deep into that. And I can see why, because it does have a special place in his heart. It was his debut novel. It's also just very good, and it is a distillation of everything you would expect from a Zelazny novel. I'm more than halfway through reading his entire bibliography now, and your boy has a type, especially for main characters, and Conrad is one of the best iterations of that type of character that Zelazny seems to write in almost every novel. The book is trippy and weird, it's post-apocalyptic, it has the tropes you would expect from a science fiction novel of this era, with the weird aliens and just mutants and strange stuff and the hero that's leading everything on. But he does such a good job of subverting that stuff too. I really enjoyed that book. That was my second Zelazny book I ever read, and at the time I thought, wow, this is his debut novel. I can't believe it. Everything else he writes must be incredible, which is not true, but everything he writes is good to incredible, so can't complain too much. He's got a few stinkers in there, but that's not what this is about. I'm going to call it This Immortal for the rest of my talking about it, because ... and Call Me Conrad does not roll off the tongue well, which is probably why his editor was like, no, we're not doing that. So This Immortal is about a man who may or may not be immortal, and he is a guardian of Earth in an interesting way, because there was a war called the 72 Hours where humanity almost wiped itself out with nuclear and biological weapons. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention Waystation. The threat of nuclear wars over your head the whole time, and like humanity probably wiping itself out. The aliens keep mentioning it. They're like, yeah, one of the reasons what you're not able to tell the rest of the world about this is because y'all might not exist in 10 years. It's not Red Scare, but like the fear of nuclear war of the early 60s. So now let's jump back to the actual nuclear war in This Immortal. In 72 hours, humanity almost completely destroyed itself, and aliens showed up and were like, bro, what are you doing? This ain't cool. I have a video from very early in my YouTube journey about this book, and I'm very happy that it is one of my more popular videos, because no one reads this book and they should. But as I was saying, aliens show up and they're like, what are y'all doing? And they stop this war, and any humans that want to leave Earth are given like a safe haven and treated as not like second-class citizens, but as displaced people. And Conrad, who was around during that war, is trying to protect the Earth from alien interests, from aliens buying up chunks of the Earth from them, raiding archaeological sites, stuff like that. And the book revolves around one of the aliens very high up in like the royal family or something like that, wanting to walk around and see the Earth on like a little tour and maybe buy a big old chunk of it. And Conrad's not okay with that, but he really doesn't have a choice. He has to be a guide for them. You meet some very interesting mutants that remind me of stuff from like Fallout. And as usual with Zelazny's writing, he's asking these questions that are left to the reader to interpret. You see these mutants that seem like things from mythology, like satyrs and stuff. And the question he poses is, were these always there and this nuclear war allowed them to come out, or were they created as mutations from these hot zones? At one point, it's implied Conrad might be like the Greek mythology version of like a shape-shifting immortal or something. Very interesting. He does such a good job of weaving in Greek mythology into this story. It's one of those things where the boundaries are being pushed in science fiction in wonderful ways. It's what I love about 1960s science fiction. And this book, man, it's 700 and something pages for 4 complete novels, and it gives you a deep understanding of what people were looking for in science fiction in the early 1960s. All of these books are worth reading for any science fiction fans, and for newer science fiction enjoyers who haven't dove into the past yet, this is all you need to get started. Just this little bitty book, this beautiful little bitty book. You can buy them new. It comes with a cool dust jacket. This is just like a very classy copy that comes in a slipcase. And that little book, you get the High Crusade, Waystation, Flowers for Algernon, and Call Me Conrad. And you get an education on what science fiction readers were focusing on in the early 1960s. I'm a little biased because I love all 4 of these books, but I love them because they're good. And I also happened to read all of them very early on in my journey through older science fiction and fantasy. And it really did build me a foundation that made me more appreciative of everything else that came out around that time. I love Dune. Dune is the best. God Emperor of Dune is the best Dune. I like the weird stuff, but wow, do I appreciate what Dune was doing more now that I understand what the rest of science fiction was doing at the time that it was published. I'm going to start rambling. If this video feels a little like maybe not choppy, but harebrained, I guess is a good way to put it. It's because I kept trying to write a script for this thing and it was not working. So I decided to brute force my way through and just get this thing out because I wanted to talk about these books and I wanted more people to know about this little thing. I don't have an affiliate link or anything stupid for this. It's from Library of America. Library of America is awesome. I think that they should have more speculative fiction stuff, but the stuff that they do have is very good. You can get all of Vonnegut's novels on there in a box set. You can get this as the 2 complete works in a box set. There's a women's crime fiction of the 1940s. I have that. It includes In a Lonely Place by Dorothy B. Hughes, which is an outstanding novel. That's one of those things you should have. I think that's it. I'm just going to keep rambling if I don't stop this. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what you thought of them, any recommendations for other stuff from the early 60s. Now bear in mind, there's a very good chance I've already read it if it's even remotely popular, like the top 100 science fiction novels on Goodreads. If it's on there, I've probably read it. But other than that, let me know what's out there. Let me know if you enjoyed these books. Thanks for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.